I feel like I've always been aware that I was black. Not technically in for any bad reasons at first. But it's just I don't know. I can't remember it being like there was one day in like middle school where like someone told me I was black and I like went home and was like, Mom, what does this mean? I think it was one of those things where literally like since I can remember I knew I was black.
One of the big things for me about like what I identify as, and what I want people to know that I identify as, it's not I think when you see me, right, like I think oftentimes people can be like, oh, she has like brown skin, she is black. And that is true. Like I identify like as black, but I also identify as being Haitian American, and I think that's a part of my culture that like I'm really proud of. I think that a lot of Haiti being like one of the first countries that like actually overthrew the colonial like masters, all of that, like a lot of that rich culture I think has shaped my output, like my view on like life and who I am. And so I think that sometimes that can be like really easily forgotten. I think just because when you see me, that's not necessarily like you don't see Haitian American.
I do identify as African American, but I feel like the term like what does that even mean? And I think for most of my childhood I was kind of confused because I was like, I don't feel African at all, and like Africa is not a country. It's like other people would be, you know, Irish American, Italian American, German American, but like African American, like you can't lump that into, you know, other ethnic identities because Africa is not a country, it's a continent. So I think something I struggled with a lot as a kid was just like understanding like my identity in the context of like a history of like having ancestors that were slaves in the United States, and I think it's hard to like come to terms with that and know that there's a part of your ethnic heritage that was not just lost to history because of assimilation, but was like actively like stolen. And I think that's always been something that's been hard for me to come to terms with.
My parents were born in Ghana, so I'm Ghanaian American. And growing up, honestly, it's gonna sound pretty hilarious, but it's not even that I didn't know I was black. Like, yes, I knew that my skin color was darker than other people, but I didn't see I didn't see myself like as Black American or like African American per se, because every single black person like with darker skin that I was around was from Ghana, like when I was younger.
I think being black in the world, like I think I'm really proud to be black. When I think of in the context of the world, I think of all the different cultures that comprise being black. When I think of the fact that there are black people not just on the continent of Africa, but like everywhere, I think that I think I get like excited even about the fact that I come from a place or come from like a people group that's really diverse.
I feel like more than anything though, being black, I just kind of identify with like the struggle, as cliche as that sounds.
Coming from this like rich like legacy of like struggle and like perseverance and like surviving in that, I think has been something that I've always been proud of, but also has been like a burden of like like this stuff is tough. Like it's inconceivable to think about, you know, that amount of like suffering and like unfair treatment.
Like in America, because of the like inherent like I don't know, like stereotypes or like ideas surrounding being black and what that means historically and to this day, they kind of affect my opportunities in life.
I was working with a group of 3 other white students in my biology class, and this one guy, he like misplaced his iPad or something, and he directly looked at me and asked, hey, like, where's my iPad? And I thought, oh, like, I'm a jokester, so like he probably thought I took it anyways. So I was like, oh, I don't have it, like maybe you should like look around more. And then like eventually he found it. And so then I was like, oh, see, maybe you should like look around for something before you start blaming people. And then he was like, oh, it's because you're black. And then I was like, I laughed it off. I was like, haha, okay. And then he said, oh, that escalated quickly, didn't it? And the 2 other people that were there, like, they didn't say anything, and I felt like I didn't really have the courage, I guess, to stand up for myself, because I was like, okay, well, that was a bit racist.
It starts to grow on you when you're walking into places and people are following you, or like
police is stopping you for no reason. Or I remember one time, my dad was driving back from work and a bunch of cops started following him, and then he didn't know why, because he thought he knew. Those cops have seen him before many times, and they know that he lives, well, in that area, and like they kept on following him. And they all started banging on our door, and they asked us like, "Oh, like why are we here?" And we're like, "We live here," and they're like, "Oh, there's a bunch of burglaries like going on around here," and like they started to notice like my dad's accent, and they felt bad because like they realized they had judged wrong. But like in the first place, they shouldn't have judged wrong just because he was black. Like he was driving his own car. He went to go pick up his mail. He used his key to get into the house. Like that, I feel like that should have keyed someone in. Like, oh, that person's obviously not a burglar. That person's not a thief.
There's another student that literally flat out said that he didn't get waitlisted to his school. Like, I'd gotten waitlisted to his school. Like, that's not great. And he's like, oh yeah, you got waitlisted because you're black. And I was just
At Northwestern, being black to me, it's kind of like, I just feel like I have to prove myself a little bit more because there are so few African Americans on campus, as it's like that for a lot of prestigious colleges.
Is especially when I would do something right and teachers would be really surprised that I was able to either pass the test, or they would think I cheated on a test if I did well, or my friends would ask me how I passed on a test or whether I cheated, or just questions that would make you feel less of a person than you are when you work hard for something, where someone's like, oh, maybe it's because you're black. And that happened a lot, especially when I applied to Northwestern. I didn't really tell anyone that I applied to Northwestern because my friends were applying, and I was the only person at my school who got in, and people were like, oh, it's because you're from Africa or you're black. But like, I feel like we even have to work harder. We don't even get a pass. We have to work harder than a white person to get into the same place than white people have, and they don't understand that privilege that they have.
Yeah, I think being black and being Christian has taught me a lot about what it looks like to give grace and what it looks like to forgive, even without people understanding necessarily or even realizing that you are being forgiving, you are extending grace to them.
Most important things that I've noticed about being black at Northwestern is like how that intersects with my faith. And I think I came into college very, very sure that I wanted to join a Christian organization, and pretty sure I wanted to join Cru, because when I thought of college Christian organizations, I thought of Cru, or as my parents still call it, Campus Crusade for Christ, because they're old-fashioned. But I think, and like, it's funny because like people at home, like my parents and pastors, almost like joke because they know that Cru isn't very diverse, and they're just kind of really like, they like can tell and like, or will ask me like how I feel about that, but also just kind of like, you know, just tell them like they know that that's like a fact. And I think I don't think I like thought about that before coming to college.
One of the things that made me stay in Cru was the fact that there were black people. I'm not gonna lie. I was especially after just hearing stories from other people, or I didn't feel like I was approached as much as my white friends had been in Cru. Maybe this was not the case, but that's just how I felt personally, because I would see like, oh, this white girl A was being approached more, but like I'm not being approached as much as the other person was, and I felt different for it, and I'm always gonna think like that because I have a different skin color, and this has always happened to me. I've always been treated differently, so that's always gonna be in the back of my mind.
One thing that I want you guys to just keep in mind is that stand up for us. Like, you're not gonna look like a fool, even though you think it's not cool, like you think it's, oh, just like whatever, it's a joke, it's no big deal. Like, it is a big deal, especially to us.
Racism is not just an individual like moral shortcoming. Racism is a group mentality. Racism is an institution.
But one thing that I want white people to know is, or like even to do, is don't get defensive when somebody calls you out on something that you're doing.
And an example I like to give to my friends is like, let's say you call 911
and you're saying, "Oh, my house is burning," and then the operator replies to you, "Oh, all houses matter, so we're not gonna come to you." Do you kind of see what I'm trying to get at? It's like you specifically in that moment, you need them to help you with your house, where they're saying all houses matter, so we're not gonna help you. And that's the example we're giving. Black lives don't seem to matter because Black people are being treated unfairly, but we're trying to state that Black lives matter because we're not treated as the same as other races or white people. An example.